It might be funny if we played off that I was here and never said anything.
Okay, we could do that too.
No, whatever.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I'm crazy.
All right, let's do a goddamn show.
Let's do a show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 98 of The Rich Dickman Show, the podcast that is slightly better than mediocre. I am your host. I am Rem. Once again, change that up a little bit just to throw you off. You're like, oh my God, what happened? But now we're back to normal. You know, doing our thing, having fun. Got an interview tonight. May have a guest, may have a live Dickman Dickman. I don't know yet. But Ray is still alive. Never mind the corona. He's kicking ass. It's Ray. Ray, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going? 98, huh? That's the year I finished my homeschooling.
Oh man, that's the year I graduated high school.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, so we're only like a couple years apart.
That's when Berries and Cream was born.
I was homeschooled 8th grade.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. There are people in the workforce that were born after 2000, like that are legally working. That's crazy.
It's insane. Like every day I realize how old I am. And how much not fun the world is. So, anyways, hey, here we are. We're going to do some time traveling this week. We're doing lots of fun stuff, but this is episode 98. In a little bit, we're going to go to an interview with, a real life, survivor reporter, survivor journalist, if you will, Mike Bloom. I talked to him almost exactly 5 years ago, Ray, and it was good to catch up. We did that one earlier in the day. You were quite quiet for some reason. Not sure why, but we may have, we also may have a guest pop in. I'm not sure where he is. I've got Maddie from Australia in my Discord DMs bothering the shit out of me right now. And, he wants to say what up to Ray and the listeners. And I said, Maddie, come on the goddamn show. Like you're not doing anything right now. So, mate, I've got an appointment in 5 minutes with my Foster's beer. So go ahead, Maddie. But
yeah, put another shrimp on the Barbie.
Yeah, put another shrimp on the barbie. Yeah, that's okay. We've offended enough Australians for today. All right, here we go. All right, so let's set up the show real quick, okay? This is the Rich Dickman Show. Go to richdickman.com for all your Rich Dickman needs. Click that merch tab, okay? I know Bernie's not doing so well anymore, but the message still remains. You eat the rich, right? It's a hot shirt. It's a sweet shirt. It's selling like hot cakes like wildfire, no offense. And get it while you can. Promote socialism by supporting capitalism. That's how we do it. All right. You can email the show, richdickmanshow@gmail.com. We're going to get back to that in a minute because we've got episode 100 coming pretty soon. And Twitter is at Rich Dickman Show, and go ahead and call the Dickman line whenever you can because we love the Dickman line. We don't get enough love out of it though. 860-316-4776. Ray, real quick, we're going to hold off on our weeks and all that fun stuff, but I want to know, man, like real without getting too far into the, oh wait, by the way, if you like us, support us, patreon.com/Rich Dickman. We got every week we're giving you something because I'm so grateful for those who are helping us. I want to help you by giving you more content. Every week you either get bonus clips or a bonus episode. And one day Randy will get his shirt. Okay. Ray, how you doing, buddy? You doing well? You doing well this week? I feel like it's been a long time since we talked.
Yeah, it's been so long. Not just a couple days. It's been a full week, with no communication.
Yeah.
Maybe my voice just hurts or something like that. So I don't know if I want to talk much, but we can move on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll see.
Maybe
we'll see what's going on.
Maybe that's why I'll be quiet later.
Ray, I did have some ideas, Ray, and I don't want to give them away on the show because producer Ryan's working on, but we might have some new shirts coming soon. And we might be capitalizing on the coronavirus craze. But, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
Nice.
Yeah. All right.
Nice.
Ray, as you know, I am a big fan of the television show Survivor. It's on CBS at Wednesday nights, 8:00. And it is a game show in which anywhere between 16 and 20 castaways are left on an island and forced to survive. And, it's not like watching Joe Robinette doing bushcraft, and they're given some stuff, but it's more of a social game. And you got to vote people out every week. And at the end, they have to vote for you to win $1 million. Well, this year, they brought back 20 previous winners and it's amazing. I've been kind of checking out of Survivor the last couple seasons, just haven't been into it, but all my favorites are back this season, Ray, and I am super excited. I am locked and loaded for this season. I'm ready to go. I'm having a great time every Wednesday, and I thought, what better way to celebrate this season of Survivor than to talk with my friend Mike Bloom. Friend is a relative term. We've talked once 5 years ago, but I consider him a friend. So, Ray, without any further ado, we're gonna cut right to that interview right now that you and I recorded with Mike earlier in the day, and hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you enjoy the Survivor talk. After the interview, we'll get back to our normal fun stuff. I mean, it's all fun, Ray. I don't want to. Ray, tell me to shut up so we can go to the interview.
And here's the interview.
All right, Ray, I am now here with Mike Bloom, who I consider a very good friend, though I haven't talked to him in almost exactly 5 years. It's just been a couple more days than the last time Mike and I talked. Mike is a writer for Parade Magazine, and he is a Survivor journalist. And if you haven't heard me talking before, I love the game of Survivor. I love it more now this season than ever before. It's great. So I'm glad to have Mike here. Mike, welcome back to the show. Well, not welcome back because you've never been on the Rich Dickman show, but it's good to talk to you again, Mike. How are you?
I was going to say, I think the best friendships are the ones where you just sort of pick up after 5 years, right? Like, it's good to put your best relationships in stasis, freeze it like Walt Disney once upon a time, and then awaken it a few years from now. Like, all right, let's check back in. Let's see how things are going.
Yeah. And these days, I'm such a changed person now from back then that everybody is my best friend. Everybody I talk to, everybody who is willing to give me the time of day for 2 minutes is now a good friend. So.
Yeah, and I think, I think the advent of social media has also created this weird sort of idea of what a friendship is. I mean, I know through the podcasting I've done, I'm sure you can certainly co-sign based on the stuff that you've done of like you make bonds with people just through chatting or through talking over these types of things where like, some of my closest friends, it took me like 3 years to actually meet them. But it feels like the best relationships are the ones that you can sort of pick up that ball and run, even if you haven't sort of liaised face to face before that moment.
Yeah, and you know what's good about that too is it's interesting you brought this up because Ray, my co-host, he and I have never met. He was a fan of mine from my old shows, and I needed a co-host one day, and he volunteered. But what's great about these online friendships, where you have very close to somebody, like if you just get sick of them or you don't feel like talking, you can just leave your phone on red and be done with it, and wait till the next day. So yeah, it does allow you to very easily break off any sort of like relationships. Like it's just as easy to make and break friendships through the social media now. Where like now you can like start a tweet thread where you're like mocking them, or like you said, you can read them on a red, or you can subtweet them. Like there's so many ways you can really burn that bridge after you promptly build it. What a world we live in. Absolutely. And Mike, you should feel honored today because you are experiencing a first in my podcasting career. This is the first time I've ever podcasted with a cup of coffee in my hand. So there you go. You're going to get caffeine-fueled Rem Dickman. All right. So let's get to why we're here today, this evening, tonight, or whatever it is that Survivor Season 40 has hit, and it's Winners at War. And I got to admit, the last couple seasons, especially this past one with Island of the Idols, I checked out completely. I'm just not interested in any of these characters they're bringing on the show. But when they told me I have 20 winners coming back, 20 of some of my favorite players of all time, I was like, oh man, this could be good. And it has been fantastic for the first, 4 or 5 episodes now? 4 episodes? And so 4. The first one was kind of a double episode there. And so it's like, I want to talk to somebody about this season and why this season is so much better than the others, the most recent seasons. And I mean, the obvious answer is, well, they're winners. They're characters that you knew from before. Sure. But the next question that comes after that is, why haven't we been able to build a new character that we all fall in love with, like a new Rob Mariano or a new, Ethan Zahn, right? From so long ago. So being in your position now, and you're out, you're doing, you're actually a Survivor reporter, and you've been to Fiji how many times?
One so far.
Once. Okay, one so far. Are you going back this summer?
I mean, fingers crossed. I cannot make any formal announcements, especially considering international travel is sort of up in the air as it is. But my hope is to go back out there. I really say what you want to about, season 39. I certainly have my thoughts. You have yours, but I had the time of my life out there in the preseason. So I do hope that I do have the opportunity, COVID be damned, to be able to have that experience once more.
Awesome. So I do want to talk about that too. So let's talk about season 40 here. So why is this season so good beyond bringing back 20 winners? And that may actually, you know what, that might be the answer, but you know, what do you think?
It's a loaded question. And I think a large part of it is that, you know, with this idea of returning players, it's not novel. You know, all the way back from 2004, we've been bringing Survivor players back. I think what this season particularly shares, more so, I would say, than the most recent returnee seasons where, you know, we had all returnees on Survivor Cambodia, season 31. We had all returnees on season 34, Game Changers. We had 4 returnees on season 38. And we had, I don't know if you count what Rob and Sandra did last season as returnees, but this feels like the first time in a long time that we are acknowledging this idea of legacy, because this really does feel like, you know, 10 years ago, we had Survivor 20, Heroes versus Villains, which is another very universally heralded season. But I feel like even the difference between those two seasons are that I think Heroes versus Villains sort of treated it as just another season of Survivor, whereas Survivor 40, and maybe this is one reason why they throw in all of these interesting, I'll leave it at that point, game mechanics with the Age of Extinction and the fire tokens, is because they really want to acknowledge the fact that this is a show that has become a monolith and a stalwart in television history over the course of 20 years. And I think in not only bringing these people back, but I think the key to this season is acknowledging a lot of the off-screen stuff that has happened, stemming all the way from this supposed quote-unquote poker alliance to, you know, Ethan's battle with cancer, or the fact that, you know, people have had children between their time on Survivor. I feel like in a lot of previous seasons, we don't get a lot of like, well, since you last saw me, I've been doing this. This really feels like the first big time that people are genuine, that the show itself is genuinely grasping. These are living, breathing people, not just Survivor contestants. Here's what they've done since we've seen them last. And, you know, this is what Survivor means to them. And from that perspective, it really does feel like a season 20 years in the making. It's not just, we're going to bring back 20 people and have them play one more time. It really is a celebration of what these people have brought to the table and what the show has brought to the table for decades.
You're absolutely right. I think you nailed it right there, is that we're acknowledging what happens outside of the game. You mentioned the Poker Alliance. For anybody who's not watching the show, there's a group of players who played poker together. And during that poker game, they said, hey, this is the alliance if we ever play again. I don't think they thought they were going to play again at the time they did that. And it became an issue. And now that, you know, one of them got picked off this past week, Tyson. But, you know, acknowledging what happens outside of the game, and that we hear the post-game interviews and we hear Rob Cesternino doing his interviews with the players, and they all talk about things that we don't see on TV or the conversations players have had off camera or even back home. And it seems that's always been like a taboo thing for Survivor. Never wanted to acknowledge, you know, pre-game alliances and any of that. But now we're actually talking about it. You know, Rob and Amber, they're playing together. They're married, right? And they have 4 kids together. These people have known each other for quite a long time. And it's fascinating to see that dynamic at work. Now we're acknowledging the outside stuff and they're playing together. You know, Sandra and Rob, who were the idols on season 39, they're back for season 40. And apparently Rob never told Sandra he was playing, so she's pissed at him for that. And so it's fascinating to watch all this kind of come together.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Because I mean, to make a direct comparison to the very first returnee season that we had, there was a pre-game alliance of Boston Rob, Tom Buchanan, Lex, and Kathy that dictated a good amount of especially that late pre-merge section. And I mean, even though we saw Rob sort of hoodwink Lex into having him keep Amber, that's essentially the reason why Lex did it, is because there was this pregame alliance that existed. And the show really brushed that under the rug. They were really trying to paint this portrait as to like, well, you know, nothing happened off the show. It's only on island stuff. And now let's jump ahead 16 years. And maybe it is partially due to, you said, the fact that there is like a married couple on the island, or just the fact that all these people have played so many different seasons together, to the point where that was a major focal point of this past episode, right? Was Tyson making the argument to the players who do have connections and have played with one another about, let's get rid of some of these other people who have only played once before, who don't know anybody else, you know, on the island, because they can be the more dangerous ones. So it's an interesting element for them to regard. I think another big exciting element of this season as well is that it has been extremely unpredictable. From my purview, and from what I did a lot of preseason stuff, obviously going into this huge season, but it really did seem like, from the fans' perspective, the consensus first 4 boots were going to be in some order: Boston Rob, Sandra, Tony, and Sarah, because they just thought they were way too big. They were just such big presences and so dangerous. Why would you want to keep them around? They're such an easy vote. Yet here we are approaching episode 5. All 4 people are still in the game. And I think some people are still flummoxed about it. I think you could include Parvati in there as well. It really has confused people as to how this has happened. But at the same time, it makes things so exciting that I think, I honestly think you could look at those first 5 boots and not think that any of them would have been part of the first 5 boots if you tried to make a boot list preseason.
Oh, absolutely. And the fact that Parvati and Boston Rob are still playing this game and they're together blows my mind. And obviously I'm not out there. I've never played the game. And as much as I would love to play with Boston Rob and Parvati and be with them, because I think they're such great characters and they're so good at this game, how they haven't been numbers 1 and 2. How do you not throw the first 2 challenges just to vote them out right away? Sandra too, who's won twice. Why would they keep Sandra around? Because if Sandra gets to the end, she says, hey, I could have been voted out at any point, and here I am. I mean, Sandra's got a good case already to win the game just because of who she is. So it's fascinating. And I really, God, I wish we had a 2-hour episode. I want to get into the brains of these guys or post-game interviews even to know why Rob and Parvati and Sandra, Tony, they're all still there.
Yeah. I mean, I think right now, and again, like you said, it's really tough to put yourself in the mind of these players. I think the unfortunate thing, especially from a journalistic perspective, is that due to the edge of extinction, the players are still, quote unquote, actively in the game. So we, as Survivor writers, are extremely limited as to who we have access to, as opposed to in the past when we've had exit interviews with the person who was voted out or eliminated from Redemption Island that week. I mean, from what I'm thinking, I wonder if it's just with Rob particularly. I think it's a concept of this meat shield, which has been popularized since Jeremy Collins, who himself I think is using Rob as a shield. This idea of like, well, Rob is this massive target. Everyone's almost always going to be going for Rob before me. So why don't I keep him around? And that's going to, keep him loyal to me, or at least you may think. And then it allows me to sort of have an extra, wear a bulletproof vest. So if someone does gun for my alliance, Rob's going to take the hit first. And so I have a tip off from that regard. Yeah. I think you can see it a bit with Parvati as well. Like, I do think that there is something where, and Rob's sister, talked about this, that I think there is a difference between watching someone on the screen and interacting with them in real life, because we heard so much about how Parvati is dangerous, even in the preseason, just how big of a name she was. I would not be surprised if once these players hit the beach and actually started talking with Parvati, especially since now, like, she has kids, she's married. I think she is in more of a similar life situation than a lot of this cast. Mm-hmm. You sort of get to know her and you're like, oh yeah, okay. I mean, she sort of like brings down her threat level just in you realizing she's not the big bad Parvati. She's Parvati shallow. Yeah. Sandra, I'm still not entirely sure, because I mean, maybe it's just because that challenge performance, they're really just eschewing that idea that it really doesn't matter to anybody what challenge performance, whether or not they win a challenge, to the point where Natalie Anderson, a CrossFit trainer, was the first person voted out of this season. I mean, Sandra is someone who notoriously pre-games every one of her seasons. She's someone who's always going to be sliding into your DMs being like, hey, how you doing? Just wanted to like catch up, see if things are good. And so that she hopes you could repay her with a vote later. But she's just, working on her magic. And I really have to commend all of them for it, because I just think, not necessarily that they're playing with house money, but I think it just shows the extent of their skills that they have made it this far, despite being absolutely massive targets going in.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something to be said too for, spending time on a deserted beach with people you enjoy spending time with, right? And so what's great about a lot of these players have been able to watch past seasons or listen to interviews or podcasts and realize, hey, that social part where people like being around you is super important, despite having maybe won a game or been a dangerous person in the past. But Sandra, that still blows my mind, because the second she says, and she said it several times this season, anybody but me, I mean, how many times have podcasters or someone in the community said, hey, that's Sandra's strategy, anybody but me. And she's right there telling you to your face, anybody but me. Why are we not just cutting her off right immediately? I mean, I just don't get that.
But the interesting thing about Sandra's, and this has really been top of mind for me because as part of the Survivor Historians podcast, I wouldn't say we recently covered it, but at least in the past 6 months, we've talked about heroes versus villains. And I think an element of Sandra's game that isn't necessarily as well branded as anyone but me is this idea of loyalty. Sandra, I think if there is one person that like sticks in her crotch, she's not afraid to turn on them. Your Johnny Fairplay is, your Russell Hantz is. But Sandra really is a person who, like, if you get in good with her in those first few days, she, the vast majority of the time, is going to stick with you. If she wants to work with you, she will try to move heaven and earth to make sure that, like, all right, ideally we move through together. If it has to be one of us, I prefer it's not me. So I do think that she does offer a certain amount of loyalty where like for example, I think Tony and Sarah seem to have formed a little triumvirate with Sandra, which is crazy considering that there is this weird little like, I don't know, triangle going on where Sandra got Tony voted out and Sarah got Sandra voted out and Tony got Sarah voted out back in Cagayan. So it's like all three sort of have blood on their hands, but at the same time, I guess that makes them all equally amenable to working with one another. And if I could again project as to like who Sandra's closest allies are, I would say it was the two of them, that they're willing to move forward. And I think that Sandra is willing to stay loyal to them, which again might surprise people considering her independent mantra. But I do think if she intends on like sticking with you, then she's going to do so. She'll be very hard pressed to turn on you unless it's somebody that she just doesn't like.
Right. So now we're recording this. This is the Tuesday before the 5th episode. So obviously the last episode was Tyson getting voted out. And based on the previews, we've got a swap coming up here. Like, where do you see this going, Mike? And more so, do you think, because typically when we have Survivor swaps or even merges, the original tribes tend to stay together, right? So if you swap and you have like 4 from one tribe and 3 from the other tribe now on the same tribe, those 4 typically stay together unless one of them is kind of like a scorned lover or whatever. Do you think in this season, with the experience of the players here, do you think we're going to hold true to that, or are we going to see a lot more like flipping alliances and swapping up sides and trying to get ahead or taking advantage of certain situations?
I think it depends on the tribe, because I think, let's look at the last vote that each of these tribes went to and see how emblematic that is of their sort of dynamic. So we just saw DeCall, the Red Tribe, go to Tribal Council. And despite what the edit was telling us, it was really a straightforward vote. I would argue it was the most straightforward vote of the season so far, with 7 votes on Tyson. Nick threw 1 to Kim just in case Tyson had an idol, but it was pretty much, I think, pretty much like an 8-1, with 1 technicality held in. So it really does seem like, and this is talked about with this idea of like, oh, we don't want to take a picture and see where the lines are drawn, but it seems like everyone has the guys up at the call of like, let's stick together. Maybe if they end up in a minority situation, maybe they'll turn on one another. But if they end up in a majority of a swap tribe, I think there's very little chance that the calls do not stick together. Sele, which is the blue tribe, on the other hand, had an extremely split vote in episode 3, which was the very depressing Ethan vote. You had Adam operating under one plan, the get rid of Parvati plan. You had our 3 old schoolers in Boston Rob, Parvati, and Ethan operating under a second plan of get rid of Adam. And then you had this coalition of 4, Ben, Denise, Jeremy, and Michelle, as the third plan, who ended up blindsiding Ethan with a plurality. That really makes me feel like if they go into a swap, that they, depending on what the configuration is, they may be scattered to the winds. If it's like, if Adam, Rob, and Ben end up on a tribe together, I feel like those 3 might not necessarily get along. If it's like Jeremy, Denise, and Michelle, that's much more likely. But considering that there are essentially like 2 configurations on that tribe, with Adam sort of his own free agent, yet targeted by both sides anyway, that makes things infinitely complicated. So I guess my long long-winded answer to your question is, I think it depends. I don't think that the call is necessarily locked in. And I could see a situation where if Sele has like a super majority on a swap tribe, that they would stick together. But I think if you're looking generally at these people, you could say that, half of them are probably going to stay true, gun to their head, and half of them are probably going to gun after the people that they were gunning for on the previous tribe.
Right. You make sense. Yeah. And, unless you have spoilers ahead of you, how do you know, right?
But but that's the thing again, is that this season is entirely unpredictable, that it could all be completely flip-flopped when we find out tomorrow night. These players have surprised us time and time again, and that's what makes things so exciting, especially in a swap where, the show with swaps, they always seem to advertise, like, they never show what the swap configurations are. So we can't even speculate because we have no idea who's on what tribe.
Right. It'll be fun. I'm so looking forward to the next episode. I haven't been this jacked up about Survivor in several years, even though I've watched this last season, Island Idols. I fell out in the middle and came back at the end. The whole like Dan thing and the what's it, Dan, the sexual harasser there, whatever, is it Dan? I forget his name. Yeah.
Yep, that's
and the community's reaction and all that. I want to talk about that in a little bit. Not that incident. I want to talk about the community. But what I find kind of fascinating also with this season is that this show has been on, the first episode was May 31st, 2000. Okay. So this show has been on for almost 20 years, and we have 20 years, 40 seasons of history built into this game. And, the first few returning season players, there wasn't as much, is it starstruckedness? All right. For example, Boston Rob played. Yeah. He played in, season 4, which was what we want to call 2002, 2003. Yeah. And he was talking with Michelle Fitzgerald this past episode, who, when they did all their ages, I mean, she was just a kid watching Boston Rob play when he first played, and now she's an adult playing with him. So I wonder how much idol worship, that's not the right word, idol worship. You're playing.
No. Jeff literally, he said idolatry in the last episode, and I think that's another element of the meta aspect that I was talking about. So it's not just an embrace of like the off-screen stuff that happened, but also an acknowledgement of the show itself, as weird as that is to say. And we got a taste of that in something like Ghost Island, which was a new player season, but it sort of had these twists associated with, relics of the past. I feel like it only really recently has the show acknowledged its history, which is weird to say as a Survivor historian, but I feel like in especially in the first like maybe 25 seasons or so, they rarely did scenes where people would, sit around in camp and be like, wow, I feel like this is a real Boston Rob situation, when that's happening, especially as they cast more and more fans, and they've been more open to acknowledging it. I think they sort of realized that the more fans they cast in the game and the more history is behind the game, the more that's going to be brought up. And I think the show would be doing itself a disservice if it doesn't reference it. But you bring up a great point in that, people are acknowledging the fact of like, wow, it's really cool to be playing with these people. But they sort of brought up the double-edged sword in that, right? Is sometimes you could be completely hypnotized by the allure of this person, like we saw with poor Ben and Boston Rob in the premiere episode when he got completely, bunkoed into revealing Danny's plot against him. Or it could be like what we saw in this most recent episode where Nick loves Tyson, but is part of this scheme to vote against him. There is something about getting someone's head on your mantle. And I think it honestly just depends on the person. I do think that some people admire someone and want to work with them. Some people admire someone and it scares them. Some people admire someone and it makes them want to target them. I think it depends on, the person you're admiring and the person who's admiring.
Yeah. So I'm 39 years old, Mike. I think you're a couple of years younger than I am. But it's seasons like this where I realize how old I am, and Boston Rob and Michelle conversation. Yeah, because when Survivor first premiered, I was 19 years old in 2000. Yeah, I was turning 20 that year. So then you had a group of players in the most recent seasons who may have been born around that time, 96 to 2001. And now they're getting on Survivor, but they were like little babies when the first seasons were airing. So they don't have, well, they probably caught up at some point. I guess what I'm going into next here is kind of, I guess it's a twofold question, and forgive me for not having these all like filtered out because they just flow from my brain here. It's like we have a fan base now that kind of for a long while really liked the fans of the game that were playing because they felt like they're living vicariously through them. Do you know what I mean? Like an Adam Klein who was a big fan of the game, right. And so his character would resonate with a lot of like the internet fans who always wanted to play but never have. But I don't know that a character like Adam becomes a larger than life character like a Boston Rob or like a Tyson or any of the people on this season. Well, any of the older people. I don't know. Is that something you've noticed too? Is like they're not creating the same characters anymore because like my thought is there's too many fans playing. That's not a bad thing, but there's too many fans playing thinking they know just the right way to get to the end of the game rather than playing the game, exploring the game and becoming the character we all love because of it. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, I think it depends on what you mean by like big character. I guess the question is like, are you essentially saying like we have no modern Survivor legends? Because I would push back on this idea that like there are no big characters. I think you can say a lot about modern Survivor, but I think one of the things that it's consistently hitting out of the park, in my opinion, is casting. I think we are far from the days of the early 20s where it was just, 16 to 18, like, actors from California and the southern states with a couple of old people thrown in. Right. I think that they have created some really, really interesting people to the point where if they do have another second chances season, I think there's a really interesting group that you can pull from. I think what it comes down to is I think the way we consume the show is a little different. Because I do think that, when you don't really, Survivor was born like in the nubile ages of the internet where you're dialing up and going online to talk about Rudy Bosch and Richard Hatch. I think that, the show has existed for so long that every contestant's going to be compared to a contestant before it. And that just exists purely the fact that there are hundreds of people. But, back when Boston Rob played in season 4, there was nobody like him. So he was able to sort of be that one of a kind. But I think also, online discourse has developed in a way where it's harder to accomplish becoming this big character. And there is this idea of like stan culture, right? And like really big fan favorite players. And I think there have been actually big fan favorite players. I know you dropped out of Island of the Idols, but I would say Janet Carbon is one of the most universally beloved Survivor players I've encountered in quite some time. And I think it's just the way that we consume things nowadays and the way that talk around the show is built that like, she's not going to get, massive discussion points like a Rupert, for example. But I think within the smaller circles of Survivor that the fandom has sort of built out, I think there is still a lot of positivity about characters like her or a Christian Hubicki, for example, or even someone like an Elaine from last season, or, Rick Devens is certainly a polarizing figure, but there's been a lot of talk around him. I still think those characters exist. I just think due to the way that the show is portrayed and sort of consumed nowadays, it doesn't allow those easy opportunities for you to be like, oh, Suri, absolute legend of the game.
You make very fair points, and I'm glad I brought that up because you kind of making me see the other side there, and I don't disagree with you at all. It's like back, remember season 2, Keith Fammy, the chef in Australia, right? Back in the early days of Survivor, everybody who lasted long became a celebrity for 3 weeks. Like Keith Fammy had a cooking show, for a couple days.
Yeah, exactly. So. And they were doing like they were booked on like mall tour for like months after that. Yeah. Like you said, I would say that maybe. I think, 9/11 obviously changed a lot. It changed a lot for Survivor. It was airing one of its bleakest seasons in Survivor Africa at the time, which took place in the wilds of Kenya. People didn't necessarily want to see people surviving, in this world climate that was very much on edge and just trying to recover on their own. And so I really do feel like those first couple seasons and maybe a bit of the third, to your point, was really about like making celebrities out of these people. And I think after that, it took a significant nosedive, or even if you look at people from Marquesas, Thailand, Amazon, and with the exception of Rupert, no one else really like caught on as a celebrity as much as someone like Colby Donaldson.
I mean, there was a time in history where just getting voted out of the game, first or last, got you on the Howard Stern show. So, a lot of that's probably my age showing, hey, kids, get out of my yard. This is where I am with this game now. So, but I'm glad I asked you that. What I want to, Jesus, I blanked on something. Shoot. Oh, well. So, all right, let's switch gears here. I'm sorry, I had another question, and it just completely lost it.
I'm sure it'll come back to you. It'll pop back.
It'll come back. So you got to go to the pregame for season 39 last year? Okay. Tell me about that, Mike, because I'm dying to know what that's like. You're there for what, 3 or 4 days, and you get to see all the behind the scenes and try out some challenges?
Yeah, so basically what the process involves is, you fly to location, you get to interview all the contestants before the season starts, get their thoughts. In this case, I also got to interview Rob and Sandra, which was bananas. Just to clarify, unless it's a theme like Second Chances, we don't know what the theme of the season is ahead of time. We can try to ply CBS all you want, but they will not give away information. So when we landed, I thought it was just going to be 20 new contestants. And then when we're sitting there, listening to Jeff give his talking heads, when I'm about to interview him, he reveals this big twist. And then obviously I have a conversation with people like him, Matt Van Wagenen, who people might not necessarily know, who are not like intrinsically tied into the community. He is one of the other big EVPs of the show, obviously less of like the physical face than Jeff, but still really instrumental to the day-to-day. So in the days leading up, we'll talk with the two of them. Like I mentioned, talk with the contestants, try out a challenge, maybe try out some other elements. Like, for example, I got to go to the Island of the Idols and talk with Rob and Sandra a bit and get to see those truly ridiculous but truly amazing statues, that bookended their location there. And then you're there through the first 3 days of the game. So you get to see if there is a Maroonie, you get to see one. You get to do a couple of camp visits to see exactly how the tribes are settling in with one another. You're there for the first challenge or first couple of challenges, whatever takes place in that first episode. And you're there for the first tribal council. So essentially you watch the first episode play out in front of your eyes unedited. And it is a truly remarkable experience. I absolutely understand the remarks that people have had towards Survivor production, especially in lieu of what happened last season and maybe some of the production decisions that were made. But it astounded me how much an episode of Survivor is really like an iceberg, where what we see for 42 minutes obviously is not reflective of the larger action that happens on the island, but just what happens in general. There are so many people involved, more than you might think, not just the cameramen and Jeff Probst. There are people who design the sets. There are people who design the artwork. There are people who work the marine department, which is responsible for boats that ferry the contestants to and from everywhere. There are people in a home office sort of on headsets consistently dictating, where everyone is at all times. It is such a multi-handed operation that it truly blew my mind to see how the sausage got made.
God, the logistics just behind the game just fascinates me. Seeing some of the behind the scenes pictures, what we see on the television screen every Wednesday night, we see your players, we see Jeff, we see the challenge, we see like the island, and that's it. But when you see those behind the scenes photos and you have the hundreds of cast members, the cameramen, the crew, the press, it blows my mind how if you ever see a mistake, you have to search for it on the internet to find a production mistake, but you don't see any of that.
Right. Yeah. The vast exception would be like, oh yeah, caught a boom, or like elements like during the big Ko-Rong medevac disaster that happened in the middle of a challenge, when like you very clearly saw literally everyone was all hands on deck, just dropping everything to help comfort these contestants. And it's very, very rare that curtain drops, and it just shows the professional veneer that they have been able to build up. And I mean, it's extremely different from the rawness that came with the first season. So different in a myriad of regards. And one of them is because production functions as a well-oiled machine. They've been in the same location for 40 years. People certainly have opinions of that, but I think one advantage is that they generally know, how a typical season is going to run. So they can sort of look ahead and not have to worry about any sort of X factors that may be brought in, and that helps the process run that much smoother on their end.
Now, that location in Fiji where they've been, and I assume they're going to continue to be there, it just makes sense to have one spot. It's just probably easier from a logistical standpoint and production standpoint. But is that land they own in Fiji, or they rent it out from the government, or do you know anything of that works?
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit with some of the producers that are responsible for booking the locations, which obviously they had, to your point, much busier work for the first 16 years of the show. But yeah, it's essentially a deal with the Fijian government where I believe they get rebates to essentially set up shop there. And it's sort of a symbiotic relationship where Survivor is obviously like bringing consistent business to them. And at the same time, Fiji is able to supply them with the literal land. So I think it works out where they've really worked out a good deal. I was told stories about like them going to like Fijian native ceremonies to really like get welcomed into the culture. So it's really clear the relationship that they built out with the government over the past few years.
I'm sure that's beneficial, for the government as well, to have a bunch of extra people using their economy, if that's even the case. I don't know. I don't know.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, they're indulging in like their products, and they're hiring a lot of local workers as well. The interesting thing about Survivor is that I talked with so many crew members, and it really is like a Rolling Stone gathering moss. Like, Survivor will go to Brazil, and someone who worked on the show as a local in Brazil will stay with them. They went to Palau, and a guy who worked in the dive shop happened to come on board and is now the head of Marine that got brought on board. So it is crazy to look at how many people they've sort of picked and gathered from around the world, and they use so much Fijian local workers as well. So yeah, to your point, they do pay them back in kind.
Hey, Mike, just when I just thought of now, is like whenever we see somebody who's not Jeff Probst from production, usually a doctor, why do they always sound Australian? I don't want to assume they're from Australia, but is there a big Australian contingent?
I don't know. It's a weird question. I think in those early days, because they did film sort of, A, I think it's the Mark Burnett connection, and B, because they filmed a lot of seasons sort of in that Pacific area, I guess they were able to like outsource from New Zealand and Australia. But yeah, it is a bit strange, right? We talked about this on the Historians too, that it does seem like for some reason, like every doctor is Australian. Maybe it just means that the country/continent is like bringing in great doctors. Maybe they have the best, babies are born and then given a certificate to go to medical school immediately afterwards. It's just what you do when you're an Australian.
Right. All right. So I want to ask you, this is a weird question, and don't worry because I don't have any listeners in this podcast anymore. So you can be as honest as you want. But your co-host on Survivor Historians, Mario Lanza, has said something similar to the effect about the Survivor audience being a bunch of crybabies. Right. And I don't want you to insult the audience. I understand you're a reporter and you have to be neutral, but
gotta get those clicks.
We have this game right here, Survivor, where being deceitful is part of the game, right? Building trust and then cutting their legs out from underneath them. That's part of the game. Kind of being mean is built into this game in order to win, right? And we've had this period of time at the beginning of the game where think pieces were being written like, oh my God, this is terrible for humanity. How can people be like this? And how can you play a game where that rewards bad behavior? And then that kind of went away, and Survivor just did its thing for several years. And then the internet got big, and you had a whole bunch of new fans get in here, and they all know what the game's about. They know it's supposed to be that way, but they're very sensitive to things, especially like maybe because they're standing behind a player that they like and that person gets voted out. But I don't know. Do you find that the audience these days, I think the audience kind of tends, actually, here's another question. Do you have demographics on the audience? Does it trend younger these days than before when it may have been older? And why, after 40 seasons, when we know what this game is about, are we still getting upset when somebody acts mean?
Well, I think this is a very multifaceted question. First, I would say that in terms of demographics, I don't know the demos, but I do know, I think there is a sort of stratification that happens within Survivor where you hear a lot about the casual fans. It's usually associated with like when you go onto the Facebook page and you see the people that are like, I don't think they should bring back any more winners. We need Rupert and Ozzy back on the show. Oh, I love Malcolm, or like they'll often call a person the wrong name. Like those are usually our casual fans. They're people who will watch every week, but not exactly pay close attention. And then you have this community or what are known as super fans, people who watch the show every week. They get involved in discourse, whether it be online or podcasting or writing or what have you. People have sort of tried to tear it out into like then super duper fans, which are the people who like know every detail about every season, like have a photographic history as to everything that's happened in the past and everything that will happen. But I do believe that, from my opinion, I think that largely the superfan community is a good one. I think that it is generally full of people, especially compared to some of the other shows I cover. I cover shows like Big Brother, which is a much more toxic fan base. That's the fan base that will like call people's jobs and get them fired for things they said in the house, send their family death threats, try to order SWATs on like the houses of their family members while it's going out at the time. Like, and I think maybe that sort of colored my opinion on the Survivor community as well, which yes, there are absolutely some issues. And I mean, I guess to go to your questions of sensitivity, I mean, one of them I think is definitely investment. And I think that that's always been a thing. You know, when Rupert got voted out, people were angry at the people who voted him out. When, you know, a popular character gets voted out, people get angry at those people too. I think it's just a facet of rooting for somebody, you know, rooting for a character is that when they die or when they leave, you're going to be angry about it. What I will agree with Mario about from a slight perspective, and this really has something that's really come to light for me as I've covered the show, and specifically as I've talked with contestants. You know, I've had the benefit of being able to do exit press since season 35, and as I mentioned, I got to go on set for season 39, and I mean, it's so interesting to see how people take a 42-minute version of a person sort of, you know, at face value and then make a character judgment on them based on it. And I mean, it's been tough. And I think that the proliferation of social media allows you to so easily say at Sandra Diaz Twine, you're pathetic. Why do you sit out every challenge? Like, get the hell off my screen and take your ugly face home to your family. It's much easier. Yeah, that's the thing, though. It's much easier to hide behind this guise of like anonymity than it is to like write a letter to somebody, you know? And it's weird. Jerry Manthey's statements at the All-Stars reunion about like, we're not just players in your game, we're people, got booed. I think that she had a point, and maybe it's because I, again, from the job that I have, I try to regard these contestants on the show now with a lot of empathy. And I do feel like there is a significant portion of the fan base that maybe because the show's become more about the game than the people at a certain extent will look at them as players. And so when they make decisions that they don't agree with, they're not afraid to just dig in on them, even without thinking about the fact that this is a real person behind the camera.
Right. You know, I wonder, no, that's not the right way to go. You know, it's good. It's good that this show started before social media was a thing. That's what I want to say, because who subjected themselves to this nonsense? It starts that way. I don't know. I'm looking at your article on Parade here, where you're previewing the season, and I just pulled that up, and it stuck to me. You know, your Survivor season 40, everything we know so far, including who has been voted out. These black and white pictures of the players, the high def black and white pictures, they are fascinating to me. And I don't know that if I had one of these done for me, that I would be very happy that it's on the internet, because, you know, little imperfections after being on an island for a couple of days kind of show through. Did these come from CBS?
Listen, I mean, listen, if they last long enough in the game, if they do well, people are going to be seeing much worse from them, you know, which is unfortunately another aspect of it. You know, I think people have been coming for the body of a lot of these contestants, which is, again, like, there's a fine line between being shady and just being outright mean, and that definitely skews towards the latter. That was something I believe they did have another photographer out there. So, like, again, this was a special season. They wanted to capture sort of these more intense black and white photos. I think they came out beautifully, but I also think I'm self-effacing enough, to your point, that I would point out a bunch of different imperfections. I'm sure they all have as well, even though they're like all extremely beautiful people.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're gorgeous photos. Just I would hate to see what I look like in one of them. That's all. All right, so
you never know though. Maybe have someone take a black and white photo of you, and maybe you'll say like, "Oh, I hear that black and white actually is very suiting to nearly everyone."
Really? Okay, I'll ask my cousin, the Italian Stallion, who does photography, to take a high-def black and white photo of me and all my imperfections, and we'll post that online and see what happens. So we're going to start wrapping up here, but Mike, first question is that, first, I've asked several, but at the...
I was going to say, are we starting all over again?
I know. Yeah, let's do this all over again, Mike. At the end of the season, when Survivor 40 is all done and we have a winner, can I get you back on here and do a post-game? Yeah. Awesome.
Absolutely. Right, more than happy to. Because, I mean, we're probably in store for so much more insanity over the next 10 weeks. Not to mention, we didn't really talk about, like, the edge of extinction. We're going to bring at least 2 people back. There are these fire tokens. Nobody's really used an advantage yet, but they're slowly amounting. So I think we're in for a lot more chaos over the next, 2.5 months, which, there's been some chaos here, but it's been largely from the heartbreaking variety, but in a good way almost. I'll be very intrigued to see, like, when the shit hits the fan and people start using these advantages and making like huge swings, exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, this is not going to be a quiet game. This is going to be insanity at the merge, and I can't wait. I'm so looking forward to it. Okay, so you do some other things too, Mike, and I want to just plug those for you. So you're doing Survivor Historians. Still?
Yep. So for those of you that don't know, that's a podcast where myself and a few cohorts, we basically review old Survivor seasons, and we used to do it specifically through the lens of like, to your point, there are a lot of people that have come onto the show a bit later or might not remember what the reception of a season was at the time. We bring that context in. As more recent seasons have come about, it's been more so a thing of like, let's give our opinion on things. But we just finished Heroes versus Villains, and actually we are going back to the beginning. The Survivor Historians, which is a podcast that I was not appearing on until much later in its run, did like one episode on Survivor Borneo, and it was like a super quickie, and that was it. They were still trying to get their legs as podcasters. So we're going back to Borneo. We are giving it the full historians treatment. I've watched the first 4 episodes, and they are so much fun to get into, especially looking at like, and very poignant, I think, given like where the show has come over the course of 20 years and where it has not come in some ways. So yeah, we'll be talking about that at some point. And we usually release like 3 to 4 hour podcasts over the course of like 4 to 5 months.
So when I was working a job where I could listen to 40 hours of podcasts a week, Survivor Historians was great for that. Those long episodes just take me right through the day.
That's a great voucher. Like if you have a job that just like allows you to keep earbuds in, for the entire 40 hours, Survivor Historians is there for you. And we have plenty of content to keep you satiated.
Yeah, I got to relive Survivor Amazon, and years after it happened, it was great. So that's a podcast I just don't have time. It's so long, I don't have time to listen to it anymore. So, if you're looking for stuff to listen to, audience, and you like the show Survivor, check out the Historians because it is just absolutely fantastic. Speaking of going back, you're doing a Lost podcast as well, right?
Yes. So myself and Josh Wigler, who is a prolific voice in the Survivor journalist, he actually was someone who I cannot thank enough for really getting me involved in the Survivor beat and helping me sort of get my own sea legs, as it were. He and I are both ginormous fans of Lost. And so we just decided to do an episodic Lost rewatch podcast. That's another one that comes out with like 2.5 to 3 hour episodes. I love to talk, if you could not tell by this interview, but we go every week talking about an episode of Lost. We go through all the major moments, how it connects to future episodes in the series, take listener feedback, do a bunch of like silly segments. It's called Lost Down the Hatch, and it is available at postshowrecaps.com. And it's been probably one of the most fun, fulfilling projects I have done in some time. So if you're a Lost fan and you're looking for an excuse to dive back in, feel free to check it out, especially again if you have that time.
Yeah. Post-show recaps is another feed that I just don't have time for anymore, but that was great, all the recaps, the shows. And I remember a few years ago, actually, probably around the time you and I last talked, when Josh was doing something with Lost on post-show recaps. I don't exactly remember what it was.
So he was doing something called Lost Lives, which was not episodic recaps and more like general discussions. He would do like character-based podcasts. He would do like talking with an actor. He would do this episode 10 years later. And so things fell a bit off the map after that. And then, Josh unfortunately experienced some loss in his life early on, and he sort of found solace in doing a Lost rewatch. And I think that sort of got the brain firing of like, yeah, I could do a Lost Rewatch podcast. I'm so happy he brought me on board, and now we are down the hatch, furiously typing into computers for the foreseeable future. We're about a quarter of the way through season 2 at this point, so we have a long way to go, but we are having so much fun with it.
Yeah, I remember him planting the seeds for the Lost Rewatch and back then, so that's exciting to see that it finally came true. So great job. What else do you have going on, Mike? I know you're writing for Parade magazine now, which is awesome. Are you're doing more than Survivor, I assume, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, Survivor's the main beat I'm doing right now. Like I said, there's no exit press or very little exit press due to the advent of Edge of Extinction. What I've been trying to do, and this is sort of, I guess, pulling from Survivor history, is every week when someone gets voted out, I try to talk with the person who played with that winner beforehand to get their thoughts. I've sort of been marketing it as like an exit interview of an exit interview. So like this past week, for instance, Tyson unfortunately got voted out, but I spoke with Jervis Peterson, speaking of Survivor Borneo, who was Tyson's sort of cohort on the season he won Blood versus Water, just get his thoughts on Tyson's game and the season in general. And I'll be doing some other periodic stuff from there. I'm also writing about Star Trek Picard for CBR.com, comic book resources. And I'm also doing a podcast on post-show recaps about that every week. That has been an enormous amount of fun as well. And I'm also I also podcast about Survivor. I do a weekly podcast called the RHAP B&B on Rob Has a Podcast. It's pure nonsense. We do a bunch of fun and games because there's so many Survivor podcasts out there that we're not going to relitigate the same points. We're going to play Mad Libs about, what happened if these two characters went on a date. So if that type of silliness is in your wheelhouse, be sure to check it out. And in general, anything I happen to be doing, I'm pimping out on my Twitter at a Mike Bloom type. So if you're interested, make sure to follow me and check out all my random musings, both in written and verbal form I may have.
And Mike, I'll link all your fun stuff at richdickman.com with the episode right up. But hey, one thing I got to tell you, and I don't know if I told you this last time we talked, and if I did, I'm going to tell you again because I don't remember. When I was back big in the World of Warcraft community, we had this show that was completely improv where we would just we would just write something together. Like 4 of us would get together and make something. And one of those somethings was World of Warcraft Survivor. And we did an entire Survivor season with World of Warcraft characters through, tribal games to the merge and to the end of the game. And, damn it, all that stuff disappeared on a hard drive that broke on me. I used to have it all up and I took it all down. And so I got to send, once I get I had one of my brother-in-law who does IT tried to get it working for me. He couldn't. So I'm going to send it off to my co-host Ray. Maybe we can get lucky. And if I can ever pull those things up, I'd love to go back and revisit them again. But, podcasting's great, isn't it, Mike? It's just,
did you host the Survivor games?
It was a show called Flex Mode on my old Storm Ride channel. And I guess I was the host, but it was me and 3 other guys. And we would just improv the hell out of whatever it was that we had. And it was so much fun. And I think the Lich King won the Survivor. I think he did, but I'm not sure. I don't remember now.
Listen, you can rewrite history right now, man. If you let that be buried, like you can say that you were the winner and nobody would know.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Be like, hey, I won. So
yeah, man, you would then Mike, announce yourself as in the intro of every podcast, right?
Oh yeah. You know what? You make it great. Yeah, because it's deleted internet history. Nobody can find it, so they'll never be able to prove it. So
yeah, the only piece of deleted internet history that's ever existed.
It's true. Until we find it. Mike, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. This was a fun talk. I could do this for a couple hours because I don't have anybody really to talk Survivor with. So this is great. And I'm so excited for this season. I hope we can talk again in a few weeks and recap what all the nonsense we saw.
The pleasure was all mine, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I love talking about the show in every way, shape, or form, the good, the bad, the WTF. So yeah, I'd love to have that opportunity. And anytime you're jonesing for some Survivor talk, DMs are open.
Oh, awesome. Be careful what you ask.
Yeah, I would say don't publicize that to your 0 listeners, but for you specifically.
Okay, good. All right. Thanks again, Mike. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.
Oh my goodness. That was the best interview I've ever been a part of. I don't know what you think, but I'm pretty sure that was the best one ever.
Yeah, you did really good there, Ray. You know what? You knew your role. You stayed out.
I just let you take the reins.
That's right.
I didn't want. Yeah.
So thank you again, Mike. I really had a good time talking with Mike. And you know what, Ray? I think he and I have some good chemistry, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, you had a great time talking to him. I had a great time listening to him and listening to the chemistry you guys shared. I think there's a real future there.
Yeah. You know, really, it's kind of my master plan, right? Is that I want to get noticed by Survivor legend and Survivor legendary podcaster Rob Cesternino. And as soon as I do get noticed by Rob, Ray, sorry, buddy, I'm ripping up my contract and I'm getting the hell out of here.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, that's understandable.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm pretty sure if I left my wife for I don't know who it would be. Damn, these days, Sofia Vergara. Then
she's too old.
She'd be understanding.
She's too old for you, Ray.
Yeah, I think we can make it work.
Ray,
I don't know, how old is she? We might be like the same age.
Are Hispanic women like your thing, Ray? Like, is that like what you're attracted to?
No, actually, I found out the one that got away, if you will.
Oh God,
if you want to put it in those terms.
Of course I do.
She's getting married in October,
and you're jealous as shit, right?
So I don't have any contact with her anymore, but they posted a bunch of pictures, and the guy that she's marrying looks like he's like in his mid to late 50s. He looks really old.
So he's got money.
It's weird.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
It's messing you up inside, isn't it?
I didn't dive into it. See, that's so this, you go down like a weird zone in people's heads where like, dude, okay. In my mind, I remember her as we were dating. Everything's great, right? That's rose-colored glasses. So now to all of a sudden just come across this and be like, oh, she's getting married. That's interesting. So it just completely flips the script on my memories of her. So it is what it is. I'm not actually jealous or anything.
Are you sure?
But yeah, but I don't know. Well, she's somebody that's just super interesting. You would dig her.
Yeah.
She's very, very good person. Yeah.
Maybe we should get her on the show. We should talk about, when she used to date you and why she got away. Like, I'm super curious.
That's what.
This is going to be the end of our friendship though. That's right.
I haven't talked to her in years. You won't be able to like ruin our friendship with talking to her. She won't.
Okay. All right.
But, she's the one that worked at the Starbucks where there was a guy that worked there that I accidentally dated, a gay guy. That's where that all ties together.
I'm sorry, what?
Did you catch? She worked at the same Starbucks before I started dating her, where I accidentally dated another guy that works there who was gay. That was that whole business.
Well,
Did I ever tell us?
No, Ray. How do you accidentally date a guy, Ray? What's happening? Like, I mean, this isn't one of those things like where you consider this a date every Thursday night that we do this.
No.
Okay.
No,
you need to tell the story now.
Like,
hold on.
Apparently, it was an actual like date. So it's probably like 2005 or something like that.
Yeah.
But this Starbucks. All right. So I really enjoy going to that Starbucks. I think there was like 34 people that worked there or something like that. And there's only like 4 guys. So I went for the ladies. Like I used to go to that Starbucks 3 times a day, right? Just cruise through. Everyone knew who I was because I was constantly going in there just flirting with all the girls.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I really liked this girl, but there was one of the guys that worked there that was, he was known to be gay, and I went to high school with him. We did cross country together. So I would go in there and every once in a while I'd see the guy and say, hey, how's it going? And since I was just in there, just hanging out, flirting with the girls every once in a while, one would get off work and I'd be like, hey, what are you doing? And we'd go and hang out for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
So one day this guy gets off work and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. So he's like, hey, there's whatever, I don't know what was out at the time, like new Star Wars movie or some big movie was out. And he's like, you want to go check it out? And I was like, sure. Why not? So we went and watched the movie. Afterwards, it's like, I don't know, 8:00 at night or something like that. And he's like, you want to go get some food over at Denny's? And I'm like, yeah, because that's like the only thing that's open in that town.
Uh-huh.
So next day I go into the Starbucks there, and everyone that's working like stopped. It was like somebody, does the screeching halt or like the record scratch, and all these girls are working. They see me walk in and they all turn their heads and stare at me. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And then, so apparently the guy went back and was telling everyone at work that we would have gone on a date together. And they all thought I was gay. Like all these girls were like, are you gay? Which that is not the case. So I, had to explain to them that it was obviously a misunderstanding. And then the guy even came in like a little bit later and, I had to break it to him. I was like, apparently everyone in there said we went on a date, and he was kind of bummed out. I was like, yeah, I don't know what happened, but, like we never touched hands. We didn't kiss. Like, I don't know how the hell is a date, man. But, anyway, ended up, getting that girl to go out with me. But this was also a time when I was playing paintball for a living, and we had a vinyl sticker cutting machine. So, one of the guys, I told the guys at work, and they thought it would be really funny to cut a sticker, and they put it on my car where I couldn't see it. It said, I like men. So I had that. So then I was driving around, and, there'd be people driving by me, looking at me all weird. And I'm like, what is happening? And then, honking at me and stuff. Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck? So I ended up going back into the Starbucks, and then I noticed it. And one of the people working there was like, that guy is going to really hate you for having that on your car if you leave it on there. I was like, yeah, I should probably get that off.
Wow. We learned so much tonight.
I accidentally dated a gay guy.
Yeah, back in 2005 when it was okay to make those jokes. But man.
Yeah.
So I have a, it's not a similar story, but it's in the same vein. In high school, one of my best friends in high school was actually a gay guy. And we hung out a lot because we were really good friends, right? And there was one evening that we were driving home from a night out with my girlfriend, the three of us, and he was driving me home, and he started creeping his hand over to my leg because I guess he was into me, I don't know. And he started touching my leg, and I looked over and I said, "Hey, man," and he's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "You know what? No, thank you." And that was the end of that. I mean, we were still friends. He tried, but that was enough. That's not my, I mean, there's days when you think, man, God, I'm really lonely. I could really use some company. Right. But I never took the plunge, Ray. Never tried it. Never took it. Never went to see what that was like. So maybe I'm missing out.
Me either. Yeah. I couldn't tell you. And I don't plan on it. I mean, whatever, to each his own. Yeah. You do you, but yeah, it's something for me. Nope, never been interested, which is why I thought it was so interesting. This guy apparently thought that we had gone on a date, right? Mm-hmm. And I was going on there all the time, just flat out flirting with these girls. I mean, you can't be any more obvious. Like, why do I really need to go to Starbucks 4 times a day? No. Apparently I give off those gay vibes or something. I don't know.
How long?
Maybe I'm just that attractive.
How long? Well, you're a very handsome man, Ray. But how long did you work at Starbucks? Like,
see, I didn't work there. That's what I'm saying. I just literally just go there like all the time and just hang out.
So all the money you made from paintball, you spent at Starbucks.
Yep. Yeah. Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Ray, thanks for sharing. Man. Let's move on here.
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you got to tell me tonight? Did you do your homework like I asked?
On coronavirus? Is that which one are you referencing?
On the Eat the Rich podcast.
What are we? Oh, nope. I didn't have time yet. It's only been 1 week.
Jesus.
I need at least, I have a 3-week lead time.
Ray, I don't ask for much when we do this podcast. Every once in a while, I'll ask you to add an episode, Rich. I mean, if I wanted somebody who didn't contribute at all, I just find some guy who look like Huel. I mean, that's what I tell people at work all the time. Like, you work for the union. Like, I could just call the union hall and get a new guy. Like, you could just call the podcasting union and get a new guy. Ray, maybe it's episode 98. Maybe you need to hear this. I mean, I've got people lining up at the door ready to podcast with me, like Spaghetti, like Isaac, like Randy, there's a whole bunch of people who are just ready and raring to go, waiting for the moment that you slip up and I push you out of the way, Ray. I don't know how your contract negotiations are going with Rich Dickman and his crew. All right.
That's what I was about to say.
Mine are going pretty well.
Say, cool story, bro.
Yeah. I'm looking pretty good. I'm not announcing anything yet. All right. But things are looking pretty good on the horizon. You, on the other hand, with your lack of contributions and your lack of content, finally we got a story out of you about dating gay people, which was great. Thank you very much. Ray, it's going to come up to you. We have a thing going on in Oklahoma in a week. Ray, are you going to make it?
It's like we shall see.
It's one of those.
See. There's nothing's fully planned yet, but there's a possibility.
Because we're running out of time here, Ray. It's literally next week. Producer Ryan may even show up because flights are so cheap right now. And Randy and I may be taking a drive into Dallas to pick the two of you up if you're there. Svensson, we might talk him into coming out. He can ride down with Randy. How about that? That'd be great. And then we got, if you're a fan of the Dick Show, Mad Cucks is in Oklahoma, and he said, "Hey man, I know where you guys are going to be. I'll come out and hang out too." Episode 100 could very well be a very awesome event for our small select group of people. But if you're not there, it's not the same, right? It's just not the same.
True.
Yeah.
I would like to go. I'll put it that way. It would be a good time. And if we can stir up even more coronavirus buzz and negativity, especially considering it pretty much doesn't even hurt people. So that'd be the case.
Yeah.
That'd be the case if flights might get even cheaper, and then it'd be even easier for me to get out there. I mean, they might even pay me to get on the flight.
Right. They're going to need bodies to fly. Otherwise the planes won't take off. Man, this is,
maybe they'll just let me fly.
Yeah.
They won't even have any pilots. They're like, if you just want to borrow a plane for a day, couple days, go for it.
Yeah. Randy in our chat room says people are dying. Yeah. Old people in a certain acute care center in Washington are dying. Okay. I've never seen such a thing, Ray. The past few weeks we've been talking about this coronavirus and how, it's kind of weird how, we're quarantining 60 million people over in China. But now that, we have a better hold on the numbers, and it's been about, 3 months now, and we're looking at this stuff. Ray, with all the safety measures they're taking for the coronavirus, which when you really look at it, outside of certain areas really isn't doing too much damage, why don't we do all this for the regular seasonal flu, which kills far more people and hospitalizes far more people?
Right.
I don't know what's happening here. This is the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my 39 years on this planet. The manufactured hype and panic and fear porn, it is amazing to me. In Connecticut, we have two confirmed cases in Connecticut, one of which is a doctor down in Bridgeport who lives in New York City. And we've declared a state of emergency here in Connecticut. Now, listen, these numbers can explode, right? And I'm pretty sure that there's many of us out there who've had the coronavirus and COVID-19 and didn't even know they had it, right? And we've probably been exposed several times, you and I. And we don't know the difference. But this is just the weirdest freaking thing. They're canceling school. Not my kid's school yet. I mean, I had a parent teacher meeting today, and they were talking about how one of the schools in another part of Connecticut was being closed for 2 weeks. And we're me and the two teachers looking at each other like, why? Why don't they close schools during flu season if that's the case? Like, what's really happening here? And kids are the least susceptible to serious illness from the COVID-19. So it's the strangest freaking thing. Prices everywhere are like bottoming out. Like flights are dirt cheap. Gas is coming down. Commodities are coming down. We're running out of toilet paper for some reason. I don't know why people are stockpiling on toilet paper. Also, if everybody is so scared of a rapid spread through community contact, why are you all piling in one big box store to get a bunch of toilet paper? Like, order that shit on Amazon. I mean, what's happening here?
Oh my God, dude, it's the most insane thing because I mean, okay, I haven't looked up a bunch of stats. I don't know the stats. I'm not a fucking doctor, but apparently the mortality rate is more or less in the same ballpark. I mean, 1%, 2%, something along those lines or whatever it is for the flu. But that's the thing. Like the flu kills tens of thousands of people in the US every year. And no one ever says anything as if we need to fix that. Like the United States has one of the worst mortality rates during pregnancy. Like, what are we doing here? Mm-hmm. But this all of a sudden is coronavirus that actually, like, it's not killing that many people. I mean, it's not nothing, right? But like
more people died in car accidents today.
This is what we're scared of.
Yeah. Like
there's just higher probabilities of many other things. That's all I see.
Like,
so it doesn't make sense. And then like, oh, go ahead.
I'm not saying it's nothing. Okay. Obviously we should be taking precautions. We should be washing our hands. You should always be washing your hands. And we should always, be vigilant and stay careful. I'm not saying not to do that. What I'm saying is if we're closing down schools for one case in Connecticut, why aren't we doing that when somebody has the flu? Which is far worse.
Yeah.
So I'm really confused as to what's happening here. Like we don't go freaking panicking when 60,000 people die from the flu every year, but we have, 80 people who died in a small acute care facility in Washington. And all of a sudden we're shutting the world down over it. I don't know. It's strange to me. I'm flying next week, Ray. I'm scared to death to fly. I don't like flying to begin with. Watch me become some sort of weird hermit with a hood over my head and just like walking like, my hunched over, staying away from everybody because I will take precautions. I don't want to get that, even if it's mild, I don't want to get sick. But I also don't want to get stuck in fucking Oklahoma. I don't want to get quarantined in Oklahoma and not be able to get home. So I don't know.
They're quarantining people right down the road at Travis Air Force Base. And we got a job out there too. And one of my project managers was like, shit, I don't want to have to go to that job and do the job walk. That's where they're flying people in from like all over the West Coast to this area.
They're never going to get out.
I don't want to go out there.
They're deploying the National Guard in New York outside of New Rochelle. It's like, why? Wait a second. Why?
Well, here's a good one.
What?
Oh,
you go ahead.
Oh, so my aunt-in-law, she works at a hospital, right? She's a pretty high up nurse. So she was saying a couple things. One, apparently there was one of the people that got the coronavirus from a cruise or something like that, which it sounds weird, like that you would get it while you're on the cruise, but segregated from the rest of society. I mean, that's not where it originated. People are crazy. Anyway.
Tell your story, Ray.
Guy got the coronavirus. He got the virus. He came back. He's got it. He goes to the hospital, all this business. So a little while after that, a couple days later, the wife ended up, because everyone knew who it was, went outside. Neighbors called the cops and the SWAT team, and they came and they're like, helicopters coming in, because she came out of her house. She was just in her front yard, not actually even going anywhere. She was at her house on her own property, and they literally called in the police.
Jesus Christ.
Like, how insane is this? Like, what did she do? Nothing. And apparently, so the guy that died over here, everyone's like freaking out, like, oh my God, it killed him. Well, the actual details are the virus didn't kill him. The family ended up pulling the plug. The reason being, he was extremely on an elderly person, as well as had tons of other health concerns and issues and stuff. So it wasn't actually like, oh, coronavirus came and killed him. Which, it is what it is. But and that's the other thing. You're talking about the masks. So I found out this is California in a nutshell for you. Apparently, California has taken inventory of how many stockpiled respirators they have, and reasons being for distribution. Some of the hospitals are making deals to make sure they have priority of those. Well, so they go in to check on them. 21 million. They got 21 million respirators, and every single one of them is expired.
Wait, they expire?
Kid you not.
Isn't this a piece of paper?
Apparently, I don't know. I know it's so what they're doing is apparently what they're doing is going and just randomly pulling some, just by serial numbers, random serial numbers and stuff like that, and testing them, so that if they do need to distribute them, they'll know if they work. But I'm like, what is this, like Russian roulette? Like you just hand out these potentially working masks and respirators for people. Like, this is crazy. The world is ending. It is ending just due to madness.
That's the thing. The world isn't ending. We just got a lot of people being stupid. So I don't know. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think, Ray. I guess as I travel the country next week, I'll get a better idea of what's happening. But man, it seems way overblown. Oh, okay. So the problem tonight is I'm not drinking. So I'm sorry for that. And I'm sorry for going to be extended on the coronavirus. So wait a second. Hold on, Ray. Hold on. The other night you were with your aunt and you were talking about the coronavirus and you texted me, oh man, I've got so much inside info here. I can't wait to talk about it on the pod.
Yeah.
And here I am thinking,
that was it.
I'm like, Ray, you can't wait till we record. You have to tell me this stuff now. This is important. I'm traveling in a week and a half. I need to know these things. And Ray is like, nope, you're going to have to wait. And it only affects people in Connecticut and New York. And like, God damn it, Ray. It's not the time for jokes. This is pretty serious business. And then you get on tonight and you tell me exactly what I could have told you if I just made up a story.
Well, you didn't know the part about the respirators or the details, the insider details
Ray,
of the guy that died.
If somebody said to me, if they said, hey, Rem, how many respirators do you think California has? I would have said, I don't know, 15, 18 million. And they would have said, okay, of those, how many do you think are expired? And I would have said, wait a second, they expire? Well, since it's California, probably most of them. And I would have been right.
Yeah, all right. I don't know what to say.
I guess what I'm saying to you, Ray.
No, that's what.
Get your shit together.
Yeah. At least I came with, well, I don't even know. I came with something.
At least you came with something.
I was able to talk about coronavirus
at least you tried.
For the first time.
Yeah.
It's almost like I did some research.
You tried. You tried, Ray. You tried.
Yeah. Yeah. It worked. Yeah.
Oh, God. Now we got close the schools trending in the United States. Holy Christ.
Oh, yeah. There's a bunch of people. See, and that's what's weird. When you don't have any documented cases, why close the schools? I mean, I am still of the mindset, like, let's be better safe than sorry, right?
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is be like, oh, this is nothing. And then everyone's dead. On the other hand, we have enough information to know what this is and what it isn't. And when you compare what it is versus other problems we have, it's like, this is absolute insanity. That's what.
Oh my God. All right. You know what, Ray, aside from like posting pictures of my trip, I'm going to try to stay off Twitter. My 2 weeks in Oklahoma. I can't anymore. I can't anymore with this nonsense.
Yeah. You got to hire a social media. We need to hire social media. Let's talk to Mr. Rich Dickman.
Yeah.
See if we can get us a social media expert.
I need someone just to
handle the account
to promote the show every day, so we get the eyes on it. That's it. Listen. Oh, looks like Randy posted a picture of his, upcoming Airbnb in Oklahoma. Ray, it looked like a nice place for you to hang out in. So, all right.
Yeah. It looks nice and fancy.
Yeah. All right. You got something else you want to talk about? Or you want to move on and get to some dick of the week?
No. It's got a nice little rug. The couch you can't put the couch 90 degrees. You can't put it perpendicular to the TV. How are you supposed to watch TV with a couch when they're like next to each other like that?
I mean, I'm sure.
Lean across the other person.
I'm sure with a little bit of gumption, you can move that couch. I don't think it's stuck there, pal.
I don't trust someone that's going to furnish their place in this manner. Yeah. This is unbelievable.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to introduce this week's finalists for Dick of the Week. And here's our first nominee.
Hello, Rem, and hello, Ray, and to everybody that helped make the Rich Dickman Show my favorite podcast to listen to. This is Vincent here, and this is my nomination for Dick of the Week. This week, we have Kimberly. This is the third time I'm nominating Kimberly for Dick of the Week, I believe.
Oh.
And for those of you who have listened and understand why, this is the reason why again. Kimberly I work with, she happens to be basically a secretary. She keeps logs and tracks inventory, and she's known as a dock coordinator, which means at the warehouse I do, she makes sure that all the trucks are ready.
Hold on. Does Svensson have COVID-19? You hear it, right?
He sounds a little under the weather.
Yeah,
but
a lot under the weather. Svensson, I hope you're doing okay, buddy. Let me know.
All the inventory is ready to load on the trucks when trucks get shipped out. That's her only position. She's not a manager. She's not a supervisor. She can't hire. She can't fire. She can't write people up. She has no power at all. Anyway, she acts like she's Darth Vader. She wants to reach out and grasp control of other departments and try to put them under her control so she can control everything.
Force choke them.
However, she doesn't understand. Once again, she's just a secretary. She has no power to do this. Well, this week, she made a play.
Svensson, we just had International Women's Day. You can't say she's just a secretary anymore. All right? Come on, buddy. Come on.
Even if it's a fact that is her exact job
Yeah.
duty and title.
She is a strong, independent woman who happens
So
to
insensitive.
keep your business running, and she just wants everything to run her way.
For my department again, I work in the computer department. Computer department is totally separate. It's individual from all the other departments. And in the computer department, what we do is we fix, we ship, we restore, et cetera, computers, printers, things like that to be shipped.
Delete porn.
You don't say. In the computer department, you fix and work on computers. Gotta teach everybody how to tell a story.
Out to corporation. Well, when the computer or whatever gets ready to be shipped, it goes over to the shipping department. Once it gets to the shipping department, it's logged and cataloged
Really?
and tagged.
Thing happens in the shipping department.
I love it. It's so great.
After that,
It's
it
my
gets
favorite.
logged
I love
again,
Svensson so much.
And Kimberly checks the log to see if it's going out on the right truck. Anyway, after Kimberly decides on whether it's going out on the right truck or not, that's all she does. That's it. It gets sent out. Well, Kimberly wants to take and try to control the computer department and put the computer department under shipping and try to tell the computer people that work in the computer department that she's going to take and tell them how they can work, when they can work.
This
where
might
they
be my
can work,
favorite
and
voicemail
if they
ever.
even need to work in the computer department.
Oh,
She
God.
wants to be able to take and rearrange personnel as she wants
What a
to
bitch.
by taking the people out of the computer department and putting them in the shipping department.
All
as
right,
she
Spence.
feels need to. Unfortunately, this is not her ability.
This
She
is my
cannot do
favorite
this,
voicemail of all
and This is
time.
not her task.
Oh,
And once
because I
she's
know what's
forgetting
going through your
she's
mind
not
right
a
now.
manager. She has no power to do this. Also, she keeps forgetting the computer department is totally separate from the shipping department. She has no control over this, but that does not stop her. This week, she tried to tell another manager that she can do this. And once again, I had
Are
to
you
stop
playing
her.
this a second
And
time?
No.
This is getting really, really,
It's the
really
same.
annoying doing this every time. Anyway, I can
Oh,
go
no.
way more into this. With
No, please.
details, but I'm
You did not.
just- Rem, Ray, I hope you guys are having a wonderful week.
Oh,
Take
shit.
care.
Okay.
Oh, God
All right,
damn
all right.
it.
Before I lose my train of thought, Randy, you need to convince
Oh.
Svensson to carpool with you. All right, because that was fun. Svensson, I love your contributions to the show. I love it when you send us a dick of the week. Okay, and I'm glad we're your favorite podcast to listen to. But
No, you gotta let Svensson be Svensson. That's the beauty of it.
brevity is a soul of wit, right? Is that how the saying goes? I mean, we could have done that
Yeah.
in a minute rather than 3 minutes and 19 seconds, pal. I don't even remember her name. What was her name? Kimberly.
I think it was
Kimberly.
Karen?
Yeah.
Kimberly.
Thank you, Randy. It was Kimberly. Svensson, how do you know that she wasn't given the go ahead from the boss to say, "Hey, Kimberly, we know you're just a secretary. However, we think you're more than a secretary, and we would like to see how you think we should be streamlining our operation here and saving on our budget." Svensson, I think you need more backstory here, Ben, before you start calling her a dick.
You know what?
What?
How do you know that she's not doing some undercover boss type of scenario right here, where she is the boss, but she's pretending to be the secretary, and she just can't help herself. She sees people being inefficient. She's gotta nip that in the bud. You can't let that happen. So she's gotta throw down. Maybe that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you better watch yourself.
Yeah,
She might fire you.
I watched Undercover Boss with Kylo Ren, and he ended up killing one of his people. So you better watch out. You better watch out, Svensson. I'm not doing any more Dick of the Weeks tonight, Ray. That was enough.
That one was gonna win regardless. That one got my vote.
Svensson, you win by default.
It was
Whether it's Kimberly or whether it's you, I'm not sure, but it's one of you. Congratulations.
you can share it.
You can share it.
Oh, that was amazing.
Okay. I'm Ray.
That was perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Let's see here. Let's get you paid.
Hey guys, it's time for the Thinking
Jesus
with
Christ.
Your Dickman segment. Send in your questions and we'll
We need
give
a
you some
shorter one of
advice.
these.
For example, I was told that recording in a public restroom helps with sound quality, so here I am.
Hey, what are you doing in here?
Yeah, what are you doing in here?
Maybe
Right.
we'll be able to give you better advice than what that homeless
Yeah.
guy gave me.
If we paid you $7 for that one, could you redo it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right.
They need to be more concise.
Yeah.
It takes forever.
I was hoping we'd have this question live with a guest of ours, but that guest is not here, and we have a show to keep going. So I'm going to do it. But J-Mac wrote into us, and I said, "Hey, J-Mac, you can come on the show, and we can talk about this in person." J-Mac's not here. Well, but the original question was, Ray, go ahead, read that question.
Where can I find a girl I can give a fuck about?
That is an interesting question.
That was the whole question.
Thank you for asking that, J-Mac. And of course, Ray and I are professionals. And I used to give advice for a living on a podcast. That's right. So, where can you find a girl you give a fuck about? And I assume he means, a girl that, not just to bang on the side, but a girl, you can take home to mom and dad, make dinner for, have a little bit of a life with, right? All right, J-Mac, there's a couple things here. All right. Number one, how old are you? If you're under 30, you should not be giving a fuck about girls. Okay. If you're over 30, well, that's a different story. Let's go with you being under 30. Okay. In order to find a girl you can give a fuck about, you need to give them something to give a fuck about in return. Correct? And all young men in their 20s are all idiots, and you're all stupid, and you should all be focusing on yourselves, building who you are, because who you are at 27 is not who you will be at 35. You'll be a completely different person, and the person you're with at 27 will also be a completely different person in how many years is that? 8 years. All right. So you're better off focusing on yourself at that age and building, progressing your career, building your net worth, finding a place to live, your vehicle, getting all that stuff in order. So those are things you don't have to worry about down the line. Like, you're building yourself as a person, you're establishing yourself in the community, at your job, whatever it is. And then from there, you can meet people as you mature and as you evolve who may align more with your interests rather than playing video games on a Saturday night. Right? And you may still want to do that at 35, sure, but it's a different dynamic at that point. Ray, that's what I'm trying to say. So where can you find that girl, right? Well, okay, so let's say you're in your 20s. You're not going to be finding that girl in your 20s. You're going to wait until you're 30. Now, of course, Ray, there will be girls who come around no matter what you do, because they're 50% of the population, Ray. They're everywhere. You can't avoid the women. They're all over the place, all right? Especially, if you live either by the beach, you're going to see pretty ladies all the time, or you're in the Midwest, you have a good down-home country girl. There's women everywhere. And you may find one at that age, even though you shouldn't, you might. Where, Ray, where would somebody find a girl they give a fuck about? Well, hey, I'm rambling here, Ray, because my mind is racing and I don't have the liquor to slow it down. But what are your hobbies, J-Mac? What do you like to do? Are you a Dungeons and Dragons type of guy? Do you play Dungeons and Dragons every Saturday night with your friends? Is it like a big hall of Dungeons and Dragons players and there's other people there with common interests that you can sit down and talk with? Well, that's a place where you might be able to find a girl you can give a fuck about. What else? What do you do on the weekends? What do you like? Do you like any sports? Are you into baseball? Do you happen to live in the state of Florida or Arizona where spring training baseball is going on right now? Hey, go to a baseball game, right? That's a good place to meet people. Mm-hmm. I would stay away from the bars, unless it's trivia night, right? That's another one I was thinking of today, Ray. Trivia night at a bar. You're not there to get drunk. You're there to play trivia. If you like trivia and you meet a girl who plays trivia, well, maybe you can play trivia together and you start building something from there. What I'm saying is, Ray, you want to find places that you're interested in being and then meeting people at those places, because then you have a common interest, and common interests are the foundation of friendships.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my advice would be, most people, I believe statistically, marry someone that they work with, like a coworker or so, an acquaintance through work. So do whatever you can to become a bouncer at a strip club, and you'll be good times for you.
Right.
Right?
The problem there, Ray, and I don't know how much experience you have being a bouncer at a strip club, but is that you essentially become, okay, Ray, most of the women who work at strip clubs are damaged in some way. Okay. It's very rare you find a fully put together woman who goes to a strip club and enjoys taking her clothes off for money and teasing men without any sort of baggage. Most of them will have some sort of daddy issue or addiction issue or some type of issue that is causing them to do that sort of work. It's the Lord's work. Don't get me wrong. It's very important work. It's a very important part of society. Okay. But it takes a special person to do that on on a regular basis. So the bouncer at that point, the bouncer, will suddenly become like their father figure, their protector, if you will. And I don't necessarily know the bouncer stripper relationship is a good one. Here's a quick story, Ray. My cousin is a pharmacist. All right. And it's not the Italian Stallion. It's actually the Italian Stallion's brother. He's a pharmacist. And as soon as he got out of pharmacy school, he had, all of a sudden he had money because he went to work for one of the big pharmacy chains and started getting paid. Ray, he was getting paid. So we took a ride in his BMW and we went up to a strip club in Hartford, right? It was at the time called the Gold Club, and we would spend, we would go every Saturday. And the unfortunate part was like he had all the money to burn and I didn't. I was poor as shit. So he would always have more fun than I would. But I'd still go because it was fun. And he met this one stripper who, a very small girl, very skinny girl, but that's what he liked. They thought there was a mutual attraction there, and we would go and they would find each other on that Saturday night and they would get together and chit chat and talk and all night. Okay. Turns out, she learned very quickly that he was a pharmacist, and all she was interested in, was knowing if he could get her some pills. And when he said, no, I really can't do that, it's against the law. Well, guess what? She stopped talking to him.
That's crazy. The one stripper that I dated, I met in a bar, but that's what she kept asking me for pills. Is that really statistically between our anecdotal stories, strippers, a high probability they're looking for some pills.
Listen, people don't like it when I make stereotypes or generalizations based on, everything we see every day. But I'm not wrong. So,
I mean, you got yes.
Randy says
statistics are never lying.
Another idea from Randy is, if you're in your 20s and are you attending college or are you attending like night classes or something, you might meet a very upstanding young lady there as well. So it's not something you want to rush, okay? Because having a girl that you give a fuck about in your 20s will screw you up for the rest of your life, okay? Because like I said, you may enter a long-term commitment with them and suddenly find out 8 years later, that you're two different people and you no longer like the same things and you've grown apart. But suddenly you're saddled with, a house or kids or a dog or whatever, and it makes that breakup a lot more complicated. Okay. So you really want to focus on yourself first. Focus on yourself, build who you are, become a full human being, if you will. And then you can branch out to giving your beauty, your inner beauty, your dick to the ladies that you could give a fuck about. Does that make sense, Ray?
Yeah. So you were saying that they need to build them. And in my opinion, the best way to build is to make mistakes and learn from them.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is go out and make your mistakes right now. So that means try every place. Go to the strip club, go to the bars. They're probably not going to work, but you'll realize why. Yeah. And then you'll start narrowing down, maybe you do go to the trivia night. You realize that that's something. The only actual change you're going to make is just the understanding that your expectations are lower. You're not looking for your soulmate like the first day out.
Yeah.
Going to wherever it is.
Yeah.
That's all you gotta do. Just adjust the mindset and you'll be good.
Yeah.
Go make those mistakes.
The first hot chick who pays you attention is not your soulmate for the rest of your life. Okay. There's probably an ulterior motive. All right. Let's just, I go through life thinking that when somebody wants to talk to me, it's not because they like me. It's because they want something from me. That's my instinct, you know.
Yeah.
Don't fall in love with the first person you go out on a date with. Plain and simple. Maybe you will down the road, but not on the first date. Okay. So that's enough there. So thank you for writing in, J Mac. I hope that helped. And and if you were listening just for the Mike Bloom interview and you made it this far, thank you. It's usually a lot more fun, but because of our weird recording schedule over the next couple of weeks, we have to pound a couple of these out. All right, Ray, what else you got, man? Before we begin to wrap things up here.
I don't think I have anything else actually.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
Nothing more to talking points.
All right. So coming up on patreon.com/Rich Dickman, we got a couple things here. I don't know that Ray and I are going to be able to do part 2 of the liquor fueled pop-up audio for the Michelada and Mangria. Was that the one? No. Yeah. Because of a very condensed schedule. All right. But I just need permission from our good buddy Isaac, and Isaac and Randy had a conversation one night while watching a wrestling event over Discord. And I let them know I was recording it, which I did. And once I get Isaac's permission to post it, I'm going to post that. That will be some bonus content for you. And you'll also get some outtakes from this episode and our conversation with Mike Bloom and all that stuff. So we're giving you stuff every week at patreon.com/Rich Dickman. We really appreciate those of you who do to support us. So thank you so much. All right. Next episode will be number 99. And it's very special, Ray. It's a very special episode, number 99, because returning to the show, it's been 31 weeks, Ray. The Priory Society, wow. Eros and Isis, they're coming back.
Yay. Nice.
And you can
that'll
can tell Isis about how good she looks and all those sexy pictures they're posting these days.
Yeah, I got to stop sharing those with you all the time.
Yeah.
Just every day. Like, check this one out.
You're like some weird creeper, man. Mm-hmm. You're just like stalking that, waiting for the pictures to come up. Yeah. So, yeah. So next week, we've got the Priority Society coming back. And then the week after that, it's episode 100. And that's going to be a big one. Hopefully, Ray can get out to Oklahoma. Hopefully, producer Ryan can get it from his quarantine. Yeah. You know what? That's another thing about the coronavirus. Producer Ryan was with producer at Sam. They all over Europe. All over Europe. Right? They flew back. Okay, go home. Nothing. Nothing. No quarantine, no nothing. And I'm like, Ryan, are you sure you're cool? Right? Cause I actually don't want to see you for 14 days, buddy. No offense. He's like, yeah, man, no, we're fine. We didn't have to do anything. We're out in the world now. So how serious is this? Like, what's going on? All right. So Ray, where can we find you? Where can we get a hold of you outside of the show?
The best way to do it would be, Twitter, at Jules Winfield. But the other one is, maybe just call the voicemail line. Do that and leave us a voicemail.
What's that number?
You can reach me that way. It is 860-316-4776.
That's right. Call the Dickman line. That's right. Find us online at richdickman.com for all your Rich Dickman needs. Go ahead, click that merch tab and you'll find our shirts. We got some more coming soon. I can't wait to show you what they are. Producer Ryan's working on them as we speak. But of course, we don't have our tribute to El Abogado, our attorney at law. And there's a slightly better than mediocre t-shirt. And of course, our lovely Eat the Rich shirt. Go ahead and get it. And you know what? If you get one of those shirts, leave us a review on Amazon. That helps. That helps a lot. Check out the YouTube channel. Okay. You can just search Rich Dickman. The YouTube channel will pop right up. All our episodes get loaded. Ray, I had a thought. Episode 95 with Elisa May, we titled, TRDS, a Triple X parody. And it got pulled from YouTube because it was a misleading title or it was like a potential scam or whatever it was, right? Because it wasn't actually a Triple X parody. We had just talked about doing one for the Rich Dickman Show. Now, our highest viewed video on YouTube is called Topless Sunbather. And there is no Topless Sunbather. So that would be misleading as well. But it hasn't been pulled. So you know what? YouTube, kiss my ass.
Did you report it?
No, I didn't report it. Don't you dare report it, you guys.
We gotta report it.
But everything gets uploaded there, and you can check out our Rich Dickman Presents series as well. We had the chicken wing video, and of course, the most recent, the Impossible Whopper. So you check those out. Let me know what you think. Those are fun. RichDickmanShow@gmail.com. Ray told you to call the voicemail line. That's the Dickman line, 860-316-4776. We're at Rich Dickman Show on Twitter. I am at Rem Dickman. You can find producer Ryan at RyanTRDS. Follow my mother at Rem_Mama. And of course, bar buddy Randy, my advocate himself, at Sir Zero with an E. That's right. That's how you can get a hold of us. We will be back next week, episode 99, Aerosinisis of the Priory Society, real life swingers. And we're going to have some sexy talk, Ray. So make sure you bring your swinger questions. I know you and your wife are looking to get involved in the lifestyle, or you just want to watch your wife. You just want to, how does it work? I don't know the terminology. I was going to say you wanted to watch your wife get
Maybe
fucked.
I can just have my wife come and ask some questions.
That would be awesome. You should probably do that. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys, for
I will
listening.
if I can get it. I will. Yeah.
We'll see you next week. Good night.
See ya.
I'm trying to say things.
But do you think like
Like what?
my wife would, like if I was like, hey, so we got these swingers coming on the podcast for the third time. She'll be like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Like, yeah, the swingers.
Yeah.
Actually, she knows about that.
I didn't want to be too crude and say you just like to watch your wife get fucked by other guys.
No, jeez, yeah.
I'm sorry, Ray.
Yeah, it's not high on my priority list.